While we were preparing for this program, I asked you if you could collect a couple of stories about people that have had medical acupuncture for various problems. And you've just shown us how Wayne went with his knee injury following an accident in the army. Can you tell me now about a shoulder injury?
Right. Well, the first one we have for you is a lady who had dislocated her shoulder. She's roughly 60 years of age, and she's, after dislocating her shoulder several times, she went and had surgery for it, and she ended up with what essentially is a frozen shoulder, and she couldn't lift her arm much above her belt. If she tried to lift her arm up the front forwards, she couldn't actually raise it very far at all, and she was stuck with it for a long period of time, more than a year or so, and she came to me for help and assistance, and so she was otherwise well. She had a few ongoing medical problems, none of a serious nature, but the shoulder was the thing that was really interfering with her life. She had a lot of pain with it. It was hard to sleep when she lay on it, and she couldn't use it for doing common everyday tasks. And this is a common scenario with people with shoulder injuries. You don't know how much you need your shoulder until you can't use it, and she was a classic example. So she'd had all the investigations she needed, so we didn't need to proceed with any further tests. We just had to get on with treating her. So we started treating her once a week with acupuncture, and it took about 3 months, and gradually after each treatment or each second treatment, she'd notice that she could move her arm a bit further and gradually had less and less pain. So she had to she didn't have many side effects. Most of the time we just used the laser, and so treated points in her leg which relate to the shoulder, and these are using the reflex arcs that relate to the muscles around the shoulder girdle, as well as the shoulder muscles themselves. So we can use needle or laser, and so she didn't have any reason why we wouldn't use needles, and sometimes we did. And treating her once a week, we gradually got her arm up, and it wasn't perfect. It was probably an 80% improvement in function, but her pain was almost down to zero. It wasn't a problem, and she had enough functional movement to get around and do her daily activities.
Dr. Ralph, earlier you mentioned using needle acupuncture or laser acupuncture, or both. Are you able to tell us a bit more about that, please?
Well, Coralie, essentially we find we can use laser and needles interchangeably, and perhaps 80% of the time the effect is identical. We find where there are deep muscles to be treated, say around the hips or the lower back, sometimes we find needles more effective in that situation because they can penetrate further. The low-level lasers that we use generally are in the sort of 10 to 50 milliwatt range, and they are very weak lasers, and they only penetrate 1 to 2 centimetres mostly, and so needles may be required if deeper structures are to be accessed, such as I said, in the back and the hips, etc. But most of the time, laser and needles are essentially the same. The other difference is that laser itself has some direct effects, and there's some quite interesting new research out showing how it affects the development of stem cells, has direct effects on the lymphatic system, and those things which add to the benefits to the patients.
Thank you for that. And we hear from a lot of people that are suffering pretty intense headache, and I'm just wondering whether there's any value in seeking out some medical acupuncture if you're somebody who lives with headache?
A lady that came to me with 18 years of chronic severe headache from concussion, and it's quite a difficult story because she was actually a subject of physical abuse from her husband and family, and she'd been knocked unconscious a number of times and hospitalised, and often in those situations these things are difficult to resolve, but after 4 or 5 hospitalisations she finally got the courage to leave her circumstances, and but she was left with the chronic headaches that were probably a 7 or 8 out of 10 in severity of pain, and they were constant 24 hours a day, and this had affected her life severely. She did get a bit of relief from painkillers, but she had tried many migraine and other treatments as well, and came for some acupuncture. And so with the treatment she improved like most people do with headaches. It's proven to work effectively in chronic headache and migraine, and she steadily improved, and after about 6, 7, 8 treatments she was about 80% better, and with some subsequent follow-up her headaches fully resolved and she was able to resume her life in a more normal situation.
That's great, thanks, Ian. One last thing I wanted to ask you about. A lot of people that contact us at Chronic Pain Australia are very distressed, downward spiral due to pain and all of the contextual things that happen when you're in pain. And I'm just wondering, what's the interface for people that are experiencing that distress? What's your approach to help those people?
Well, an interesting question. A lot of people are very distressed by their pain. They don't understand it very well, and one of the biggest things is they can't see themselves getting better, and they may have tried various treatments. The painkillers help, but they don't fix it quite often, and they feel like they're stuck, and that's a very depressing situation to be in when you've got chronic severe pain, and that it also means they can't sleep properly, and those things really contribute to their sort of downward spiral they feel they're stuck in, and this leaves them very distressed and anxious about the future, and inability to work properly and maintain their relationships, etc. So quite a bit of time can be spent at the start explaining how they can get themselves out of that, and when they start to feel like a treatment is starting to work, their mood changes. If the pain goes down a bit further, they can start to sleep better, and then aids with healing of their process, the general well-being, and they start to improve in many aspects. And we often see this with acupuncture, and it is a leap of faith for anyone to start any form of new treatment, and just have to go with that in acupuncture for 3 or 4 treatments until you start to see some reasonably good improvement. That's generally what we see, and then the patients sleep better, their pain starts to go down, and they start to see a future for themselves, and that's a really important aspect that comes through.